Welcome to part two. This is where we left off from part one with that front green surface having been completed. And now we're kind of into lofting and surfacing that main area. So with lofting, I have a trick that I like to do. When you first run the loft command, it's automatically on do not simplify. And if you have a bunch of curves that have like a uneven point structure like what I've got here, I like to click the rebuild button on loft and put 10, 20, 30, however many points are appropriate for your geometry. Now, and you can see, and obviously you get to preview your loft. Now if you are previewing your loft and you click cancel, next time you run loft you have to click it. Next time you run loft it will default once again to do not simplify, and you'll have to click rebuild again. So the trick is do a loft, it doesn't matter what, click rebuild and type 30 points and then hit OK and generate the surface. Now this seems to change the default settings of the loft command, and it will mean that next time you run loft it will go straight to rebuild with X number of points, as opposed to do not simplify. The other great thing about this is do not simplify will say you've got a point curve like directly sectioned from a scan and it has like 500 points on it. Do not simplify is going to take a while to compute. So with this kind of presetting loft to rebuild, it saves you compute time on a big job, saves you waiting time, minutes, which when you're iterating quite fast to find shapes, that can add up to a lot. So as I said, at the start of a job, even do a simple loft, change it to rebuild with 30 points, hit OK. That is if your curves are a bit point dense like mine often are, and that will save you some time and complexity. So I'm working this transitional area at I think it's the entry point of this cowling, and I got to say it's very difficult. I actually struggled with this. I tried every trick in the book. At first I thought I would get it with a blend surface, and I may have eventually actually got it with a blend surface, but the first attempt, which is in the past now, I was talking while it was happening, I wasn't getting it quite where I wanted to. What we see here is I created a section, rebuilt it, and I tried lofting. I tried a sweep one. Now this is looking close, and then I used the bottom part of the sweep one, split it, and used that as the connecting surface. To me that looks pretty close. I don't know why I didn't stick with that. So yeah, this was the trickiest spot, and then the areas that I create after this were also quite tricky. Those kind of triangular areas coming in. I probably spent I don't know, an hour or more just trying to get these right. Now, in terms of design intent, whether I actually had to get it exactly the same is questionable. I love those sliders on the adjustable surface blend just for making quick changes and visualizations. This is cool. You can see I've generated the surface and I'm moving it around now just to see if I can get it in the right spot. Rebuild the surface there to be able to manipulate it a little bit easier, and then gave up and tried something else. I might even speed up this section because obviously I was stuck in a bit of a hole here. But I think the main thing, when you get stuck on a part of a job like this, the main thing is just keep trying. Looks like I'm getting set up to try a sweep 2 here. So you can see I've taken 2 sections, one on either side, splitting them off at the bottom and top of the surface, and also splitting that top hook off. Okay, and a sweep 2, and that actually looks like it got me pretty close. Breaking that out and then a blend surface, so that look, it's not great, it's nothing to be proud of, but it got the job done. It got me out of that corner. And you know what, as you build more surfaces and you create more edge tangencies in an area like this, you can go back and rebuild your surface, and then you're like, oh, you know, that now I have the right pieces of this puzzle to be able to create a better surface. But you need something to start off with. I don't know how the A-class automotive guys do it, and I guess this is different because it's reverse engineering. You're trying to match something, but this is how I tend to work. I'll make a surface, and then it'll be like almost like a placeholder until I can come back and make a better surface. And then I'll realize you make the next surface and you realize you're too far over or something like that. So yeah, it's very, very difficult. But the main point is just stick with it and you'll get there in the end. The other thing that made this one challenging is we needed to keep that hole pretty round. So obviously I was aware of that and trying to maintain the shape of it. Okay, so I'm getting into creating this next piece now, which I think I was going for a sweep 2 at first, which you would think should yield a pretty good result, but from memory I didn't get the best. Okay, so I've created a plane here and trimmed it with a plane, just cleaning everything up. A lot of moving parts on this little section, and yeah, it was pretty challenging. So rebuilt that, and just using the scan on the layer to click it on and off, see how it looks. Bit of a rendered view there. Okay, extract an ISO curve and then blend curve between the ISO curve and that bottom surface edge. Just trying to find the right spot to run these from. Now this a three-sided surface is not ideal. You really want to have a four-sided surface. However, sometimes you just gotta do it. So you see there I trimmed the main surface up a little bit so that it wouldn't come to a point. This is something I've learned over time, and when you watch the real pro surfaces on YouTube and whatnot, they will tell you that you don't want to have three-sided surfaces. There's this awesome guy, he's called Sky, and he's got this video series called Primary Surfacing. It's very technical, but he's an absolute pro. So I must have watched it, I don't know, 6 or 7 times, and I still go back and watch it more because the examples he shows and the way he does things are just amazing. That said, he doesn't really do reverse engineering on YouTube, at least, but what he can do is very impressive. So I'm just trying to do my patch layout here, just trying to make it all work together. You do a blend surface there and then those two ends don't line up, so I split that edge back and end up having a patch there. So I'm so sorry I jumped, this being a commercial project I suppose, or a paid project, I jumped in and I used my Xnubs plugin, which is awesome and worth every cent. Now Rhino 9, I see they have a patch command which is actually, I believe, and I've heard, just as good as Xnubs, so that's pretty exciting. So maybe I'll do a video on that, but I'll do it in a reverse engineering context, of course. So yeah, this is me just getting stuck into a bit of a sticky situation with these surfaces and edges, because obviously that's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-sided patch, so that's where Xnubs gets me out of trouble. Now if you're running Rhino 8 and you for some reason don't have the Rhino 9 whip, you're just going to have to make do. Patch will sometimes, the native patch command will sometimes do the job. If you're doing this professionally, then I can certainly recommend Xnubs. It's a great tool, and we'll see how the how the Rhino version lives up to it. Yep. So trimming that out just to create a nicer transition. So quite often I'll use blend curve, and then I'll create a curve, project that to a surface or pull it to a surface, and then use that to trim it, just to make myself a nicer like transition between two edge surfaces. So there I go again, just deleting it, and obviously trying. Look, it's not a symmetrical part, but trying to keep the two sides reasonably similar in terms of the patch layout. And I go to rendered view because sometimes you can see that black line there, that kind of shadow line. That means your surfaces are not really joining together well. So yeah, for me, with a job like this, it's a case of sometimes cutting back your surfaces so that giving the edges enough room to transition together. So I've from that YouTube tutorial that I told you about, primary surfacing, I believe he rates the edge surface command as the absolute best command for patching a four-sided hole if you have four edges. And so I've always remembered that, and to be honest, I do that and I do get great results on some, and then on the others I revert to using either sweep 2 or the xNurbs command. So getting desperate here to try and create a transition, as you can tell. And you know, it's at this point in a project, you've just got to ask yourself, how is this being manufactured? Like, is a mold being CNC cut for it? Because if it was, you know, the person who's sanding the tooling would sand that out. So I mean here, it being a composite part, of course, so like a tooling board or an MDF mold. If it was an aluminium mold or a steel mold, that would be a different story. Or a 3D print, you know, you could sand that out of a 3D print. So yeah, it's, you know, it's often the case of, with reverse engineering, it's time, tolerance, and cost. You know, you'll have different requirements from your clients, and the world I work in, which is composites, look, it doesn't have a super tight tolerance. It's normally between, say, 0.3 of a millimeter to 1 millimeter is sometimes even plus minus 2, depending on what it is acceptable. Yeah, so I'm just cutting back these surfaces because if I recall, I think I want to do a bit of a fillet here because I wasn't happy with the fillet on the scan. Just looked a bit tricky, and also we weren't really matching it. So I trimmed those surfaces back there using split edge, and then sometimes, this is a trick I sometimes do, I grab a surface on a curved bottom to trim the same. I'll offset the surface and then use that as a cutting plane, or an intersect plane, and then use the line as a cutting plane. That works quite well. It looks like I didn't take it all the way here because we've got a higher spot through the middle there. But under normal circumstances, say you've got your bottom plane, you can offset it, and just like that. And so there we go. So I offset the flanges and created a blend surface between them, then use that as an intersection plane. That's a good idea. So my main commands that I use are like extract iso curve for this kind of thing, for like trimming things back. Extract iso curve, extend surface dynamic, offset, infinite plane to create infinite planes if they're flat, extend and intersect surface. And I have that as a keyboard shortcut, which is II, and that works great, and that's how I often manage to get myself out of these transitional areas that I'm struggling with, which, you know, it looked like it worked here. So blend curve between there, and then that was a sweep 2. Split the surface back to there, blend surface between those two, and just comparing it to the mesh. and then sweep 2 again. I do quite like the sweep 2 command, and I find I tend to get reasonably good results out of sweep 2. So there we go. So this is a like an edge check. So shows me anywhere where there's edges that aren't joined together. Now environment map to see the reflections. Not bad. Now we're trying an offset, which failed, as you can see from those edge surfaces. Look, solid offsets often do fail. Okay, but despite it failing, I went with a shrink wrap. And looks like we got a kind of a printable part there. Now, wasn't happy with that, so I did an offset with solid ticked as no, and now I'm just working my way around and connecting all the edges. That's just using edge surface, which I have as a keyboard command as E. Typically it's using edge surface. Then what I do is I use edge analysis, and I go and find any of these little troublesome surfaces, which you can see that edge there. Normally it's something weird like that. You can split it back somewhere, do a blend curve, trim that part out. Again, for me it's very iterative. I don't like making lots of small surfaces, but sometimes you have to. Okay, so you can see this one had some weird edge conditions there. That's what's causing trouble there. Okay, so it looks like we're at a closed solid poly surface now. And comparing it to our base model, looks like I just realized I needed to extend it a little bit. So extending these back ones out. So I was able to use extend surface dynamic on that main surface. Look, it usually works pretty good, but it doesn't always work. Looks like I managed to get it there on those ones. Split surface, trim it back, and then a blend surface. Offset that to get that piece. Delete that inner line. I'd rather do this than the offset solid. Join it all together, and then patch in those bits. Join it all together, and let's see what we've got. Have we got a closed poly surface? Okay, checking dimensions from the client details. Yeah, we have got a closed poly surface. Okay, now using cage edit, cheating a little bit. So didn't quite make it wide enough for some reason. Got lost there in the process. And now you can see I'm making this kind of like this set in area, like a bit of an area that bit of an hourglass shape, which comes in the middle, and that's really not ideal. So this shape, I actually sent it to the client, and I actually highlighted that it's sucking in a bit there, and I just said, look, obviously I'm aware that it's sucking in a bit there, but can you take a look at the rest of it, and how does it look? Are you in principle happy with this? And I even marked it on a 2D drawing. I was like, look, I know I need to fix that, but hey, how's the rest of it? And the client gave me some feedback. He actually wasn't too worried about that, but obviously I wanted to fix it, and gave me some other details, and ultimately I kind of powered through and I finished the model to a satisfactory quality, and that's what we'll look at in probably the third and final installment of this series. And here I suppose we will end part 2. I hope you enjoyed that. And hey, just past 700 subscribers, which is insane. I never thought I'd get more than 20 or 30, and it's just been over a year. So yeah, thank you to each and every one of you that watches this video, and if you are if you're not subscribed, please do. Hopefully my content is improving a bit every time. Okay, so thanks for your attention, and I'll see you in part 3, which I'll release in 1 to 2 weeks, and then I should also have some other videos not far behind it. Thank you.